So he's over there, and I'll welcome to the stage Oatmeal Comics, Matthew Inman.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Yeah, I was sitting there the whole time going like, what do I do? Do I get up here? And they didn't know, so they've been running around the conference looking for me. So, but yeah, as you may have guessed, my name's Matthew. I am the author and artist behind the Oatmeal. What I'm going to do today is talk about boners and stuff like that. But starting off, I kind of want to get the history of how the Oatmeal was founded. I used to actually be a web designer, and one of the last clients I ever had was a dentist, and I was working for this dentist and I was building his website, and he wanted a website that was very clean, very modern. He kept using the word edgy to describe it, and he wanted it to look very glassy and almost like a PlayStation 3 kind of look to it. With that, he wanted me to put his dog, Mr. Scribbles, in the corner of every page. And what he wanted is, as you navigated the site, there'd be this stream of consciousness where Mr. Scribbles would say things to you. So I'm sitting there writing JavaScript code to, have this happen and kind of adding my own kind of little things in there. And I realized that basically I spent a career cultivating a set of tools that I could use. And all I've been degraded to is essentially, this is a computer, this is me, and this is the client. I wasn't an artist. I was just kind of an instrument for an imbecile, is the way I put it. So I decided I didn't want to work for anyone anymore. I wanted to try and make my own websites and make a living from them. So I founded an online dating website, actually before the Oatmeal. And I just basically coded it up. It was sort of like a clone of Plenty of Fish, which is like a Canadian dating website. And I started putting together these comics about dating to try and get people to use my site. Things like Types of Bad Kissers. Most of them are dating themed. Eventually I did this comic, some of you are probably familiar with, called How to Tuck a Cat's Punch and Kill You. This comic was very pivotal for me because it made me realize that what I was really good at was cartooning and not marketing and not being a designer, developer, coder, or whatever it was that I did. So I decided to switch and make webcomics for a living. And it's funny because when you tell people you're going to make comics for a living, this is what you say to them, and this is what they hear. And there was like zero credibility. When most people I tell them to make comics or I'm a cartoonist, they're like, oh, so in the paper? You're like, no. And they're like, oh, well, how do you, well, that sucks. Like, do you have a side job? Like, do you live with your mom? That kind of thing. And actually, I wanted to talk, I know there's probably some comic artists here and cartoonists, so I wanted to just for like a split second delve into kind of the business of the Oatmeal. About 15% of my income comes from ad revenue, the other 85% is from merchandise. And I'm actually looking to fade out ad revenue just because I have one little ad in the lower left. Most people don't even see it. And I like the idea better of me making a living from my work from people owning things like stuffed animals and books, rather than just mouse clicks and people surfing the internet. I just think it's a better model, and I think that's a more honest model. A lot of people always ask me too, like, why would I pay for a book when it's on the web? And that's a big thing with the web right now in cartooning and comics, because a lot of people are putting their stuff out for free, and then nobody wants to pay for it. How do you turn a hobby into a living? And I oftentimes, with most of my books, it's like 40 or 50% new material, so it gives the people who buy the book an incentive. That's something that I've always tried to do. Furthermore, I've seen a lot of cartoonists doing Indiegogo, Kickstarter, crowdfunding campaigns, like Ryan North of Dinosaur Comics. He crowdfunded a Hamlet choose-your-own-adventure novel. I think he raised like $600,000 or something. So it's great because it sort of, makes this. The more people that can make a living from this, the more people that are going to do it. I think if you end up reading comics, it ends up benefiting everybody. Patreon is amazing. It's sort of like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, except you pay on a subscription base. So what you can do is you can say, okay, I like Saturday Night Breakfast cereal. I want to give him $5 a month on a recurring basis. It's almost like a tip jar, but then in return you get rewards for it, like perks like you want a Kickstarter. So it's a great model. If you know any cartoonists that you love, see if they have a Patreon and try and support them. or if you are starting your own website or your own comic, it's a great way to make a living from it. Another thing that I do is I oftentimes will take a comic and my readers will, like, if I post a comic, they'll all start suggesting they want something on a shirt, or they want some sort of product built around that. So I'll find like a little thing that I can make a product out of. An example is I had this comic I posted years ago. They talked about the biology of pigs. And I love pigs, I think they're great. A pig can run 7-minute mile. A pig is the 4th smartest mammal. They squeal louder than a jet engine, and they have orgasms that last for 30 consecutive minutes. And I put this into this comic, and I was listening to my readers, and they're like, "Oh, you have to put this on a shirt." And I was like, "I don't know, like, I don't." So I put it on a coffee mug, and I think we sold like 4 of them. Like in 4 years, we sold 4 mugs. We sell 1 mug a year, so that's a bad example of merchandising. A better example of one that was kind of oddly worked out was I wrote this comic about Tesla. And with this comic in particular, the goal was never to merchandise it. If you visit this comic, I don't try to sell you a shirt at the end. All my efforts for this has really gone to the museum. But I did end up getting a little creative one night, and I wanted to draw this picture of Tesla riding a cat chasing Edison. And I like the way it came out. I'm like, okay, well, let's make it a print, see if anybody wants to buy it. And what's funny about prints I've noticed in shirts is, even if it's hilarious, ugly doesn't sell. Like, I've noticed people like cute more than ugly. And this is a very ugly picture. The cat's ugly, Edison is ugly, and he's got a light bulb in his ass. There's no way to go around it. What was interesting was, it was a bestseller, and I realized that people hate Thomas Edison so much that they were like, I don't care if he's got a bulb in his butt, I'm putting this on my living room. So that was kind of a neat little offshoot of what happened there. The way I draw is very distinct. Part of this is because I initially was drawing comics using a mouse, using a terrible piece of software called Adobe Fireworks. It was intended for web design, and I stopped using it about 1.5 years ago, and when I did, like a month later, Adobe actually formally stopped updating it. They're like, we're done instead, they retired it. So I think I was like the last guy using it. Like, oh well, it's done, let's bury that software forever. Part of the reason I made it the way I drew the way I used to was because of that software. It's vector driven, it's very geometrically oriented. So often my characters would be sort of round ovals, lots of simple shapes, and just kind of badly drawn. But another reason that I do that is I found that with characters in comedy, when you want to be funny, oftentimes the more detail you put into them, the less funny they become. This is an example. I drew this just for this presentation, and this character, like just looking at it, I hate it. I hate his hair, I hate his cleft chin, I hate his eyes. He looks like shitty 90s clip art. So if I were to turn this into something that I can enjoy, you'd lose the hair, lose the skin pigment, maybe add about 50 pounds. Take it all the way. That's better. That's funny. And I'm not the only one to do this. You know, I mean, Far Side is known for all his characters are really round, and they all have, usually you can't see the pupils in their eyes, they're concealed by, if it's a caveman, he has a heavy brow, or if it's a scientist, he's got glasses on. And it lends to the comedy. Even South Park, it's a bunch of ovals. Adventure Time's a good example too, the characters are really simple. What I actually enjoy about Adventure Time though is they're very simply drawn, but if you, every now and then, like Finn, his facial expressions when they zoom in turns into this like monstrously detailed, they almost look like the Rage comics sometimes when you zoom on him, so I really enjoy the way it's drawn. Don Hertzfeld, who did Rejected, again, you know, I feel like a lot of the way I draw is just coming from him, or even Perry Bible Fellowship. That guy was really, he set a new bar for cartooning, and I'm a huge fan of him. One thing changed though, about 1.5 years ago. I switched drawing styles, and I wanted to write something different. I didn't want to just do the typical Oatmeal comic. I wanted to try writing something that had more of a story. So my house burned down when I was a kid, and it's kind of this long story, and I started drawing it, and I switched from using a mouse to using a Wacom Cintiq and Adobe Illustrator and Sketch Pro. And this comic that I wrote about my house burning down was very transformative for me. It was probably 150 hours of on-the-job training and learning to actually draw that way. And it was cool because it was the first comic I ever did where I didn't have to just write, you know, top 8 reasons to put bacon on your unicorn type bullshit that I don't ever want to write ever again. Like I can't keep writing like that. I wanted to write something that had a story, something that told a tale, and that was also a little more meaningful. So I published it and like, maybe no one will read this, I have no idea. It ended up being one of the most popular things I've ever done, and I got nominated for an Eisner for it, so it was really cool to be able to, and now it's sort of opened up the Oatmeal to some different things where the drawings are getting better, and I can tell more of the story and be less focused on, sometimes less focused on the punchline and more focused on the storytelling. Like this is from a comic about a bird that we had when we were kids. This is from my comic about distance running. And you can see compared to some of the other Oatmeal stuff, the drawings are starting to get a little bit better. Another big theme in a lot of my work is this kind of sense of relatability. When you read it, you know, that's so true. And I find when I write comedy, I find a lot of inspiration in stand-up comics, more so than, like, I do read a lot of webcomics, but the type of jokes I make are more what a stand-up comic would make, where it's something that's relatable, it's something you can connect with, and oftentimes it's not a three-panel. I'm not very good at the three-panel format. I'm better at building like a rolling dialogue where you sort of have this long kind of epic tale of funny things. Like I wrote a love letter to Sriracha. It's a pretty long read, but you kind of have to warm them up, and then by the end it gets funnier and funnier. A good example of this is, a woman wearing nothing but a t-shirt looks something like this. It's cute, it's sexy, it's kind of like a tease. A man doing the same thing is completely different. And I think that's the worst thing I've ever drawn. I mean, pretty close. I even put the tan in, it's very specific. If you microwave butter for 13.3 seconds, this is what you get. If you microwave butter for 13.4 seconds, this is what you get. Again, and this is relatable, it's true, it's funny. This is your life, what you think it's going to be like after having kids. This is sort of how you imagine it, but this is what it's really like. If you've been on the internet this week, this is what it feels like. I'm not into sports, but this is pretty much the entire internet right now. I think I'm whizzing through this presentation way too quickly, but we'll do Q&A after. So I want to talk about love, I guess, and boners and stuff. So it's a little bit gruesome after this. So if you have any children in the audience, buckle up because they're about to have their minds blown by this stuff. First, I want to talk about the red velvet mite. I wrote a comic about this recently. This is a red velvet mite. They look a bit like obese spiders. They look like they're made of red velvet. They're very plush, very sexy looking. They're arachnids, but not spiders. They're non-venomous. They're actually good for the ecosystem in the jungle. They help decompose things. What I wrote about and what I want to talk about is how they mate. Basically what happens is the male, he builds what entomologists refer to as a love garden, which is a series of sticks and leaves covered in spermatophores, which are little balls of sperm. And he builds this little love, sort of like, I call it like a jizz castle, is kind of he builds his love garden, he puts his life into this thing, just puts his soul into it, and then he constructs a silken trail that leads to the love garden. And then what he basically does is he stands vigilant at that trail, waiting for another red velvet mite to come by. And when she goes by, what he does is he takes his little appendages and he starts dancing and like beating his feet on the ground. And if she likes his dances, she kind of beats her feet on the ground and they sort of get this little weird bug dance. She follows him back to his jizz castle and sits on his sperm and she gets pregnant and they live happily ever after. I love this because they're these plush little bugs, little mites, and they look sexy and lovey, and then they end up having this really kind of ornate mating ritual. But as it goes with love, there's this kind of dark morsel of cruelty that comes with it. And the red velvet mite is not exempt from that, because if a rival male finds the silken trail and it's abandoned, or maybe the guy's out for the day, or whatever the case may be, he destroys the trail, just trashes it, he goes to the love garden, destroys the love garden, and then he ejaculates on everything. So, if a female saunters by, she'll actually enter this defiled love garden and sit on the rival's sperm, and basically, the rival wins. So, I don't know what the message is here. Maybe just commit to your partner, love them dearly, because You never know who's going to come jizz all over your house. Another favorite of mine that involves love is about the male anglerfish. The male anglerfish is born, and when he's born, he's kind of a useless, shitty fish. That's the best way of putting it. He has no working digestive tract. He can't see well. He can't do much of anything very well. The only thing that works well on a male anglerfish is his sense of smell. And the only thing that he can smell very well is the pheromone of the female. So the male angler will spend his entire life alone, starved, and weak and helpless, wandering the seafloor, looking for love. And when he finally sees the female is the one you're probably familiar with. She's the one you've seen in Finding Nemo. She's got the massive jaws. She's got the glowing orb. She can actually distend her jaws and swallow prey twice her own size. It's just a beautiful organism. She's got a chainsaw for a face. It's just wonderful. So when the male sees her, he feels the same way. He's like, oh my God, like, I love you. Like, I found the one. And he sort of loses his mind a little bit, and he starts nibbling on the side of her. Like, he can't control himself, starts biting her. What happens is a chemical reaction occurs between his lips and her skin, and his body ends up fusing into her. And the only thing that remains of him is a pair of gonads. So, you know what that means? Basically, he spends his entire life being alone and desperate looking for love, and he winds up a pair of balls on the female. And, you know, as a man, this is like the most awful thing I've ever heard. And what's even worse is, initially when anglers were being pulled out of the ocean, because we didn't know a lot about them, they're deep sea fish, they mistook parasites all over their bodies. They were like, what are these weird parasites they've got growing in these barnacles? What is this? Those are actually multiple balls. The female can fuse with as many males as she wants. So it's like, she can walk around with 8 little fishy balls coming off her that used to be her ex-boyfriends, basically. And I'm kind of a firm believer that, like, I think testicles are like snowflakes. Like, they're unique, they're beautiful. You only get one pair, you don't get 8 pairs. That's not fair. So, I tried to bring that to light in my comic about the anglerfish. A lot of you are probably familiar with the bonobo ape. They get lots of, they get mentioned a lot out there. Bonobos are just apes that are known for their entire society is sort of based on sex. Like, they're very peaceful creatures. They don't fight for the most part within their community. If you're outside their community, if you give them the wrong, they'll fucking bash your brains in. But if you're in the community, they're really sweet to you. Like, the way they greet each other is with, like, oral sex. The way they say hi is by, like, giving a little, little booty squeeze. Like, it's all sex all the time. Not just straight, it's gay, it's everything. They'll do it all. And it's almost to a fault, because it's just, like, crazy, like, kind of the level. It's like, it's all they want to do ever is just, like, it's a bit much. So, I think sometimes with a bonobo, you should be like, guys, let's just cool it. Let's read a book today, okay? Bonobo apes, what you may not know is that they engage in what's called penis fencing, which is pretty much what it sounds like. 2 bonobos come up to each other, and rather than saying, hey, Frank, they sword fight with their little wieners. And they're not combative, they're not fighting, it's just their way of saying hi. It's like, did you catch the game last night? Come on, this is sort of how they connect. So, they are the only animal that does penis fencing, except one other creature on this earth, and that is flatworms. Flatworms and bonobo, those are the 2 creatures that penis fence. Flatworms, though, their penises they have a 2-pronged penis. One is a sharp spear, the other is a hose that shoots sperm, basically. And when they penis fence, they start fighting each other, and it's not peaceful, it's a contest. And how it works is they're actually both hermaphrodites. And when they get in this penis battle, whichever flatworm stabs the other first with his and then injects that into him, the other one then becomes the female and has to carry the baby to term. Nature is just awful. Like, the more you look into nature, it's just so bad. There was no lesson there in love. I don't know, just figure it out on your own. Honeybees isn't quite as horrific. It's funny with arthropods, because the more you look at their sex lives, the more it's like this weird blend between the most god-awful thing you've ever heard and the most sweet thing you've ever heard. And you can't actually tell a lot of the time. Honeybees, how it kind of works with honeybees is they have a very complicated mating ritual where the queens are kept in a certain part of the hive, and they're fed jelly, and they're taken care of, and then eventually the queens fight to the death for who gets to be the main queen. It's kind of like a little honeybee Hunger Games. And then when she basically exits that phase, she goes among thousands of males and picks maybe like a baker's dozen of them, and they go on this flight together, and it's like this dating flight where she's trying to choose the best male. Finally, after all of this, she picks the one that she thinks is the guy she wants. The honeybee then mounts her, and I am not exaggerating, his testicles explode into her. His balls explode. And the reason for this is actually, it's not so good for the male, but it is good for the male. Again, it's one of those bittersweet lessons you get from nature. It forms what's called a mating plug, where essentially his balls explode into like a glue plug thing, so she can't be impregnated by a rival. So it's his way of propagating his own genes. Which sounds kind of sweet, I guess, because he's, they're trying to be mutually, exclusive to one another. The problem is, mating plugs are found in a lot of different creatures. Bat bugs, according to evolutionary biologists, used to have mating plugs, or this phenomenon used to happen. And a bat bug is similar to a bed bug. Really, the only difference is they bite bats instead of, they don't hide in your bed, they hide on flying winged mammals. Bat bugs have this sort of awful breeding behavior where the females are, sometimes the females don't want to mate, sometimes they don't want to be courted, sometimes they already have a mating plug, whatever the case may be. So the males have taken to get their little buggy wieners and performing what's called traumatic insemination, which is where they basically make a new hole and inseminate through this little, they use like their, there's no delicate way to put it, they stab them with their penis and make it pregnant through her bloodstream. So it actually will inseminate her, but the problem is this can lead to infection, it weakens the female, it's kind of a bad thing. So evolution had its way, and they have actually evolved what are called paragenitals, which is a sort of a fake, it's a functioning vagina on certain parts of her body that they were encouraged to use instead of making a new one. And that was sort of evolution's way of saying, stop, you're hurting my species, instead use this new fancy, light-covered vagina that I've made for you. The problem is, the males, being those bastards that they are, still don't really want to always just use that. So what they end up doing is traumatically inseminating other males. This happens. Again, it doesn't get them pregnant, it doesn't accomplish anything, it just hurts the guy, leaves a little owie on him. So, evolution once again had its way, and the males evolved a manhood bag. So, then what happens is the males have actually started to prefer the man hoo-has because they're bigger and better, and they just feel better for these bat bugs. So, so what ends up happening is the female kind of gets left like she's not breeding, and you're not perpetuating your own genes. So what she ended up doing is evolving a vagina that mimics the male vagina. So her actually female red velvet mite vaginas now, bat bug vaginas now look like the males. So it's just crazy. It's like I want to get all the bat bugs in the room and be like, guys, girls, guys, everybody, let's talk this out. This is a mess. Let's start over. This is a nightmare. Again, I let you take whatever lesson you want from that. I don't know what there is there. I'm sure you guys have all heard about duck penises shaped like corkscrews. They shoot underwater like little sexy torpedoes. It's pretty common knowledge. What you don't know is about mallard ducks. Mallard ducks are the only creature on this earth, in insect kingdom, anything, birds, mammals, that have been observed engaging in homosexual necrophilia. So basically, if this is Frank and that's Richard, if Frank dies, Richard, they're best buddies, he's like, dude, let's do this. And it's just awful. It's like you have to draw, like nature can be foul and terrible. Like if a tiger kills another tiger, he's not a murderer. But this is a case where it's like ducks, come on guys, this is disgusting and terrible. Like if you want to do it with a dead thing, we'll give you a cantaloupe maybe, or something that's sort of dead. I'm not a big fan of mallard ducks, that's my point. Lastly, I want to talk about the mantis shrimp. It's my favorite animal. I wrote a comic about it. Most of you have read it. I'm not actually going to dwell on him himself. Read the comic, it's way better than I can explain up here. But I want to talk about how mantis shrimp mate, because it's something I never wrote about. I think it's really interesting. So basically how it works is, every time there's a full moon, the mantis shrimp actually come out of the water and they beach on the sand. And they actually act as lunar capacitors and photovoltaic cells, and they actually charge in the moonlight. And once they're fully charged, they actually return to the sea. From there on, they're sort of like Care Bears, except instead of Care Bears shoot that thing out of their chest, they shoot like actual light beams out of their buttholes. And they actually eviscerate other creatures and actually absorb their souls into the mantis shrimp. It's fascinating stuff. And they don't actually need to reproduce. That's interesting because they live forever. They live to be billions of years old. They actually will outlive planets. Eventually what happens is they grow to be moon-sized objects, and they're what astrophysicists refer to as nightmare ash dragons, and they take to the stars. And from there they just start attacking planets, interstellar bodies, they take out things like that. Eventually they destroy everything we've ever known, and that is the end of all things and the end of everyone you've ever loved. And that is the end of my talk. So, thank you. So I'm going to do a book signing. I'm going to do some Q&A for about half an hour, and then I'm going to do a book signing after this at booth 118. And I'll sign anything you want, bring paper. If you have some merch, that's fine. You don't have to pay for anything. But if you want to buy a book, it's at a separate booth. It's at the Barnes & Noble booth. It's hard to find. It's sort of like you travel away from the Weta booth. It's booth 731. And then tonight at 7 p.m. we're having a little there's this dinosaur-themed hotel in Lakewood that helped fund my Tesla Museum. So we were going to throw just a little party there. Matt Mossbrucker, the curator of the Morrison Natural History Museum, is going to be there talking about velociraptors. I'm going to be there talking about god-awful sex stuff, probably. I don't know. So anyone's welcome to attend that. So again, thank you. And I think we're going to open it up for questions now.
So, looking back to your youth, what do you think your top 3 inspirations were, cartoon or comic-wise, for what you do now?
The Far Side, Calvin Hobbes, and Invader Zim, maybe? I wasn't quite a youth when I was reading Invader Zim, but it was, I love his little frog-eyed piggy people, so. And the Far Side's been, it's very inspirational for a lot of people, so. Yes?
I have 2 questions. The first one is, so why did you make bombs when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah, you've actually read that. It's kind of an obscure comic. I haven't published that in a long time. When we were kids, we used to build bombs because we lived in the middle of the woods. And my brother and I, we were like 13, we went to a sporting goods store and we bought smokeless powder, which is like gunpowder, and pipes, PVC glue, cannon thread, cannon fuse, and we built bombs. I don't have a practical answer. I was 13 and things were blowing up, so that's kind of what we did. So we actually, at one point, I ended up, we lived down the street, like around the corner from Patty Duke, and her son is Sean Astin, who played Samwise Gamgee on Lord of the Rings. And at one point we went to a barbecue, so like Lord of the Rings guy was there, and we were all excited. But my brother and I brought these bombs to show off, and we threw them in their pond, and I didn't realize they'd stocked it full of fish. They'd driven like 4 hours together, and the actual shockwave from the explosion set up a 40-foot water spout, and actually rattled windows in neighborhood houses really bad. But that's Idaho. What else are you gonna do? Nothing to do there.
Where will you be signing books?
It's at booth number 731. It's in like I don't know how to describe it. It's like a big open space. I think it's the celebrity signing area or something they're calling it. It's 731. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
So, other than your grumpy parrot and your feral cat Domino, how many other evil pets do you have?
Have or had?
Either or.
Had, honestly, Grump was just kind of a jerk, but Domino wasn't evil. He was just terribly inbred. The biggest demons in my past in regards to pets have always been horses. We had lots of horses growing up, and I was never a big fan. I know everyone's like, oh, I love horses. Okay, well, go own them, and then tell me you love horses, because they're just these monstrous pig beasts. I don't know, not a big fan. Like one time my dad was feeding one of our horses grapes, And my dad gave him all these grapes, and the horse was like, I fucking love grapes. He's going bananas on these grapes. We're going grapes on these grapes, I guess. And he's just like really into them. And my dad runs out of grapes. Like he had 400 and he fed them to this horse. The horse decided that's not enough grapes. Like you have not hit the quota. So the horse headbutted my father, clocked him in the head. My dad, I remember blood spraying at me and spraying on the wall. My dad falling into the mud, which was 3 feet of feces mixed with mud. So my dad's just lying there like bleeding. Those little gravy twigs around his body, just blood everywhere. Because we didn't give him enough grapes. He needs 500 grapes, not 470. That was the problem. So those thoughts stay with me for my life.
You need therapy.
What's that?
You need therapy.
No, I'm okay.
So, my question is, you get a lot of facts. You get a lot of facts about animals and stuff. Do you do like research on the internet? Do people send you facts, and you do more research on that? Where do you get your information from to make your comics?
It used to be like any weird animal behavior someone has sent me at some point. Like my Facebook wall is just that. So oftentimes it'll start there. Some of my early stuff was just me reading Wikipedia. But I've actually, over the past 2 years, taken to I read endlessly. Nonfiction, constantly. Like, I'm reading a lot of Mary Roach lately. If you've read her books, she always picks a theme like gold or bond. I just read one about cadavers. I read 300 pages about what happens to a body after it dies. And I find with that stuff, it's very helpful. Because just skimming Wikipedia, you don't really get, or even articles elsewhere, you don't really get the full story. And I find if you read 3 or 4 different books, you can have a much more complete understanding of something. So basically just reading a lot. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so I had 2 questions. First question is, because you didn't really talk about your quizzes on the website, and I wanted to ask, where do you get the ideas for those? I mean, like, for example, how many baboons can you take in a fight with only using a big rubber dildo?
Yeah.
How do you come up with those? That's like...
That one in particular, what happened was actually, when I started the Oatmeal, first few months, couldn't make a living from it, and I did not want to go back to client work, but I had to. So I had this guy come to me, he's like, I make a website that sells sex toys. He's like, can you make up some sort of viral quiz about sex toys that would promote my website? I'm like, well, it's kind of hard. So I did, how many baboons could you take on a fight armed with a giant dildo? That was the quiz. I sent it to the guy, and he's like, I'm sorry, this is just not appropriate for my site. It's like, okay, so I stuck it on the Oatmeal instead. I don't do quizzes anymore, I'm done on years. They're fine, I like for writing and drawing more. I explore the ideas come from I have no idea. I mean, I'm a slot machine of non sequiturs, so with a quiz, it's usually just that happening.
And my second question is actually going back to Tesla. It's really a 2-part question. First, how young were you when you actually, learned about Tesla, since he's not really taught about in schools? And also, what kind of drove you in the first place to make the Tesla Museum?
I found out about Tesla late compared to most Tesla fanatics. I think it was 2006. I think the first time I ever heard of him was from The Prestige. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like, oh, it's David Bowie, It's kind of great about Tesla. And what was your other question? How did I get in the museum?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, what happened was I published that Tesla comic, and it did really well, and I sort of felt like I'd amassed this army of people who liked Nikola Tesla. Then a month later, Funny Junk started their lawsuit with me, and through that, I ended up raising all that capital for charity. And what I realized was that the Oatmeal can kind of be this vehicle for change or for something that can kind of mobilize people into doing things. And about 6 weeks after the lawsuit ended, I saw that the property where Tesla was going up for sale. So I thought, well, we've had success with the comic, we've had success with, fighting that lawyer. Let's see if we can apply this to actually buy a museum. So that's kind of how the events panned out.
All right, thank you.
So recently we got to read about you, your offspring of the luck dragon, and your great experience with that. Any plans on writing about their mating habits?
Of Teslas? Maybe. Maybe they're like manuscript. They just don't make. They just live forever, swallow galaxies. But on that note, we're still kind of waiting. Like Musk responded and said that he would be happy to help, but we don't know anything else beyond that. He's a busy guy. He's launching rockets and managing one of the most transformative car companies in history right now. So I don't mind if he takes his time.
Thank you.
So, I was just kind of wondering where like your inspiration came from for like My Dog the Paradox and the Bobcats in particular.
The Bobcats came from, I got invited to this dinner in Seattle where they wanted local Seattle business people, I guess, or anyone with a website to kind of show up at this dinner. It's like, okay, I make comics, let's go. So I showed up and it's all guys in suits and they all had mustaches. And I remember looking around and I was so bored and they were talking about venture capital and VC funding and angel investment. And I'm like, I don't belong here, I don't get this is dumb. And I was bored, so I looked at them and I imagined them all as cats with mustaches, wearing suits, chatting. And I'm like, this is great, I love this now, because they're just little kitty cats with their spreadsheets, That's where the Bobcats came from. My Dog the Paradox was about my dog, and that comic lived in my notebook for like 2 years. And I normally I found with a lot of my work when, I used to believe that the more work you put into it, the more you massage it, oftentimes the less funny it becomes. And so I always had this attitude where like, when I make a comic, do it as quickly as possible. Like, forget making the art great, forget getting the joke just right, just get it out there. It's like stand-up comedy where you have to have a certain cadence. If you overtell a joke, you fuck it up. My Dog the Paradox was very different from that because I did actually put a lot of work into it. When I published it, I remember thinking like, no one's gonna like this comic. Like I was nervous. But that was a case where I was really wrong. It actually helped that I massaged it. It's funny too, because at the end of the comic I said, this is dedicated to Rambo, my dog, may live 1,000 years. Everybody interpreted that to mean Rambo's dead. He's not dead, he's fine. Like, I still get these messages, I'm so sorry about Rambo. I'm like, he's fine. He's pissing on a beanbag chair at the moment, actually, so he's more than fine. That's where Rambo came from.
Thank you.
So I'm incredibly bored half the time at work, and unfortunately I'm almost completely caught up on the Oatmeal. I was wondering, you mentioned a few other comics earlier, but I was wondering if you had any kind of undiscovered but really good, I hate to make you recommend your competitors, but
No.
other good webcomics.
Well, that's the thing, there aren't any competitors in comics. It's not like that guy makes a good comic, people are only gonna buy him. They're free, they take 6 seconds to read, Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal Loading Artist is really good. Mr. Lovenstein, Channel 8, Buttersafe. I just reread Harp of Vagrant. I actually haven't gotten into her stuff for recently. It's really good. I really like it. Someone pointed me to one about Brown Recluse Man, which is like Spider-Man meets Brown Recluse, and it's goddamn funny because he just sort of jumps into he'll go to fight crime. It's like he just jumps into a hole. It's like I'm scared. It's just awesome. It's really good. So.
I was wondering if you could maybe have the Beat the Blurch run here in Colorado.
We're going to expand it. We're going to do an East Coast one first, and then probably do a few others. Colorado would be great, especially because you guys have so many ultra runners and just regular distance runners here because of your elevation. So it'll be interesting to do it here because you have these crazy fast cheetah people, mixed with people in wearing Blurch costumes. So yeah, I'd love to do one here. Actually, I've always wanted to do some sort of event here. I've always wanted to run a race in Colorado. I've never done that before. Coming from sea level would probably be pretty grueling, rather than going the other way. But yeah, we'll look into it. That's such a tepid applause. I'm like, okay. He'll look into it, whatever. That's a half response to a half clap. It was fair, all right? It was fair.
So I'm currently living literally inside your How Web Design Goes Straight to Hell comic, and I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to survive that without either A, slitting my wrists, or B, going insane and killing everyone.
Pick the right client, it really helps to get a good beat on what is a good client and what is a bad one. But what I've noticed too is that actually the more money they're willing to spend, actually the better the client. Because usually if they have a bigger budget and it's let's say your client is, Go Walla.
My client is actually, I work for a company, I'm a W-2 employee.
Oh, you're pretty much screwed. Like, take up other hobbies. You should get into jet skiing. Just jet ski every night to just jet ski that shit off. Just, fuck you. Just do that. That is your best bet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you said earlier that the comic about your house burning down was really transformative for you. Was that like a cathartic experience? I mean, what a traumatic thing to go through. And then, I mean, it's just such an incredible story.
Well, it was interesting to write it because that comic, the story isn't funny, like a bunch of cats dying, not funny.
No.
So when I was trying to write it, I'm like, on the Oatmeal, I'm supposed to be funny. I'm like, how do you do that? And, you know, I just sort of had this thought that how I always imagine the fire as this fiction about these cats that form a colony and how there's this massive war between the house cats and the woods cats. So it was this bizarre coping mechanism. And I realized that was the funny that I could put into it. That was the story. So it was never meant to be told the way it was told. It was just sort of this last minute epiphany about how to tell something.